The Galaxy Council had ruled for centuries, gathering the leaders of hundreds of civilizations in one immense chamber that stretched higher than the tallest mountains of any world. Their walls shimmered with alien symbols, each representing a power that had shaped the galaxy. Today, the council was meant to discuss matters of diplomacy and trade, but the air was thick with unease. A human envoy had requested to speak, and though most delegates considered humans insignificant, curiosity had forced them to allow the audience. Captain Alara walked forward, her boots clicking lightly on the polished floor. She was human, slight in stature compared to the towering aliens surrounding her, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had stared death in the eye countless times and survived. Her uniform was simple, marked with the insignia of Earth's United Space Command, but her presence filled the room more than the largest alien fleets ever could. She raised her voice so all could hear. I come with a warning. The galaxy is on the brink of a threat unlike anything you have faced. A force grows in the outer reaches of space, relentless, intelligent, and without mercy. If it reaches the core worlds, not a single species will survive. The council murmured, but the sounds were dismissive, not fearful. Elder Vork, a massive horned alien whose voice rumbled like distant thunder, leaned forward. Captain Alara, he said, his tone dripping with condescension, you are exaggerating. Humans are small. Your ships are weak. Your armies are tiny compared to the fleets we command. Why should we believe your warnings? Alara's eyes did not waver. She stepped closer, placing both hands lightly on the railing that separated her from the council floor. We have seen the signs. We have studied the patterns. This is not speculation. We are offering a chance to unite and prevent catastrophe. Ignore this warning and your empires, your people, your civilizations will fall. A young alien delegate whose scales glimmered like polished silver whispered nervously to her neighbor. Do humans always speak like this? So certain, so fearless? Vork chuckled, shaking his head. Fearless? No, arrogant, yes. They mistake courage for wisdom. We have ruled for eons. We do not need warnings from children. Alara's jaw tightened. She had faced many dismissals before. Other species had laughed at her people, at humanity itself. But this arrogance was different. This was the arrogance of a civilization that had never been truly tested. She took a deep breath and said, You may laugh now, but one day you will remember this moment. You will remember the day you were offered a choice, the day you could have joined with humanity and faced what is coming together. And when that day comes, it will be too late. The council erupted into polite chaos. Some species argued, some laughed, some shook their heads in disbelief. None moved to act. None tried to listen. Alara's voice rang above the commotion. I am not here to entertain you. I am here to save you. Consider this your final warning. Humanity is not asking for power. We are asking for survival. If you refuse, the consequences will be eternal. Elder Vork stood, his immense shadow casting over the smaller delegates. Enough, humans speak of threats that do not exist. Their warnings are meaningless. The council will not act based on fear. Let this meeting end. Alara's heart tightened, but she did not falter. She knew then that the council had made their choice. They had chosen pride over prudence. They had chosen to ignore humanity. And in that moment she made a silent promise to herself, and to her people. If the council would not listen, humanity would make them remember. As she turned to leave, her eyes scanned the chamber, lingering on each alien face. There was no malice in her gaze, only certainty. We warned you, she whispered, though no one would hear. We warned you, long before you needed to fear us. Outside the council chamber, her fleet waited quietly, ships gleaming in the cold light of space. Humanity had not yet begun its hunt, but one day they would. One day the galaxy would see that the humans they laughed at were not to be underestimated. And that day was coming. Months had passed since Captain Alara's warning had been ignored. The Galaxy Council had returned to their comfortable routines, confident in their fleets and technology, certain that no human threat could ever reach them. They were wrong. Far beyond the known sectors, humanity had been preparing quietly. In vast shipyards hidden in the dark stretches of space, engineers and scientists had labored day and night. Humans had grown stronger, faster, smarter, and their fleets had multiplied into a force that no alien species could ignore. And now that force was ready. The first signs were subtle, communication relays picking up strange energy signatures. unclaimed star systems disappearing from sensor maps, faint blips of human ships appearing where no humans had been seen before. The Council dismissed these reports at first, thinking them errors, miscalculations, or even fabrications. But soon the truth could no longer be ignored. It began at the outer rim. Entire fleets of alien patrols vanished without warning. Their communications went silent, and when survivors returned, they spoke only in terrified whispers. They are coming, said one trembling pilot, eyes wide. We underestimated them. We never should have laughed. Then, without announcement or hesitation, the humans appeared in force. Thousands of ships, sleek and deadly, emerged from hyperspace corridors like a river of steel and light. They moved with precision, each vessel knowing its role, each captain understanding the strategy as if it had been written in the stars themselves. Commander Jace, a human veteran of countless battles, stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute. His gaze was calm, almost serene, but the eyes behind it were sharp and calculating. Prepare the fleets, he said simply. We do not negotiate. We hunt. Back on the Council worlds, panic spread like wildfire. Alerts sounded in every city, fleets were scrambled, and every weapon capable of destruction was readied. But no matter how fast the Council acted, the humans were always a step ahead. Their movements were calculated, intelligent, and terrifyingly precise. Elder Vork, once proud and unconquerable, watched the reports from his throne room. His massive hands clenched in disbelief. How can a species so small do this? They should not even exist in numbers sufficient to threaten us, he roared. His advisors cowered, unable to answer. No one had ever seen Vork lose control like this. The humans, however, did not move blindly. They struck only where resistance existed. They did not destroy unnecessarily, nor did they revel in cruelty. Every strike was measured, a lesson to those who had ignored their warning. Every world taken was a reminder. Humans remembered and humans never forgave. Alara's voice crackled over the fleet's comm channels, calm yet commanding. They laughed at us, she said, addressing every human vessel. They said we were small, weak, and unimportant. Today they will learn the truth. Today the galaxy sees humanity as it truly is. The Council's worlds, once proud and untouchable, were thrown into chaos. Fleets collided in desperate attempts to stop the human advance, but each battle ended the same. Humans adapted faster than any alien strategy could anticipate. Every failure taught them something new. Every victory made them stronger. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, civilizations that had once ridiculed humanity began to whisper, fear in their voices. They are not what we thought, said one elder. They are more. They are unstoppable. And so humanity had returned, not as diplomats, not as explorers, but as hunters. The species that had been laughed at and ignored now stood ready to reshape the galaxy. Their patience had ended. Their hunt had begun. The Council had ignored the warning. And now, they would pay the price. The galaxy had never seen fear like this. Entire fleets that once ruled the stars were now fleeing before human warships. Worlds that had laughed at the idea of humans were trembling, their populations hiding as the hunters arrived. Yet the humans did not move recklessly. They struck with purpose, with intelligence, and with a discipline that no alien species had ever witnessed. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Jace studied the holographic displays of enemy positions. His voice was calm, almost quiet, but every word carried weight. Remember, he said to his officers, they thought we were weak. They thought we would be ignored. They made their choice. We finished this our way. Every human ship, from the smallest scout to the massive dreadnoughts, moved with flawless precision. When a Council fleet tried to flank them, humans anticipated it and cut off their escape. When cities prepared defenses, humans bypassed them, targeting only what mattered. Every move, every decision was a calculated strike against pride and arrogance. On one battlefield, General Krith watched in horror as his strongest ships were destroyed. He bellowed orders, but even his most loyal officers hesitated, afraid to make a mistake that would cost them everything. We outnumber them, he shouted, but it meant nothing. Numbers were meaningless against humans who learned, adapted, and fought with courage that seemed almost unnatural. Across the galaxy, the whispers began. Young delegates, scholars, and soldiers who had once dismissed humanity now spoke in awe. They are unstoppable, one said. They think faster than we can. They fight harder than we ever imagined. We underestimated them. Terribly. Alara's voice rang across the comm channels as she addressed her fleet. We do not fight for glory. We fight for respect. We fight because we were ignored, dismissed, and laughed at. Today, the galaxy learns that humans are not weak. They learn that courage, determination, and unity cannot be beaten. The humans did not celebrate victories. They did not revel in destruction. Their faces were calm, their eyes steady. They treated every victory as a lesson, every surrender as a chance to prove that mercy could exist, but only on their terms. The humans were not just soldiers. They were teachers, and their lesson was clear. Never underestimate humanity. Elder Vork watched from his hidden sanctuary, his massive frame slumping in disbelief. How can they be so clever, so fast, so persistent? He muttered. He had spent eons believing himself untouchable, yet now he realized that arrogance could blind even the oldest, wisest beings. The humans were not just fighters. They were relentless, patient, and terrifyingly smart. In the outer sectors, alien scientists and military strategists scrambled to understand how humans could move so quickly, react so precisely, and adapt so seamlessly. Every tactic they attempted failed. Every trap they set was anticipated and avoided. Humanity's power was no longer hidden. It was undeniable, unstoppable, and inspiring. On planets that had once been proud of their defenses, civilians whispered of heroes. They are humans, said a frightened child holding a toy spaceship. They fight for us, even when we never asked. Across the galaxy, fear mixed with awe. Humans were more than just hunters, they were legends in motion, and so the tide turned. The galaxy that had once mocked humanity now bent beneath their might.
One by one, worlds surrendered.
Fleets fled. Leaders hid. The humans pressed forward with a determination that seemed endless, a patience that could not be broken. They were small, they were underestimated, and yet they were unstoppable. Every world they touched learned the same lesson. Courage, determination, and unity could overcome even the greatest arrogance. And humanity's hunt had only just begun. The Galaxy Council, once the most powerful governing body in the known universe, now trembled under the unstoppable advance of humanity. Worlds that had been symbols of their pride and might were reduced to ash or forced to surrender. Entire fleets that had been considered invincible were shattered in hours. The Council's arrogance had crumbled, replaced by fear that no amount of technology could erase. Elder Vork sat upon his throne, massive arms resting heavily on the armrests. His eyes, once filled with authority and confidence, now reflected disbelief and dread. He had dismissed Captain Alara's warning months ago, laughing at the idea that humans could ever pose a real threat. It was arrogance, he admitted quietly, almost to himself. We thought we were untouchable. We were wrong. Reports kept flooding in from across the galaxy. Systems fell silently, fleets vanished, and leaders went into hiding. For every attempt to resist, humanity responded with precision and intelligence, leaving no room for error. The Council's attempts to strategize were meaningless against a species that adapted faster than any weapon could fire. Alara landed on one of the Council's homeworlds, her boots crunching softly on the scorched ground. Cities lay in ruins, but the humans had moved carefully, ensuring that civilians who surrendered were protected. She walked among the remnants of power, her eyes scanning the destruction that had once been so proud and untouchable. You ignored the warning, she said softly, her voice carrying over the empty streets. We gave you a chance to survive, and now, this is the consequence of your choice. Vork's massive shadow fell across her as he rose from his throne. You are humans, he said, voice trembling, and yet I do not understand how you moved so quickly, struck so decisively. His pride had been shattered, replaced by the fear of one who has lost everything. Alara did not raise her voice. She did not shout or threaten. She simply stood tall, letting her presence speak for the countless human fleets still in orbit above. We are humans, she said. We were ignored, laughed at, dismissed. We warned you. We showed restraint when you could not. But we never forget. And we never forgive. This is justice. The Council's remaining members huddled together, their plans in ruins, their power broken. Across the galaxy, species that had once relied on the Council for leadership now looked to humanity with awe and fear. Stories of the human hunt spread quickly, of fleets that could strike anywhere, of strategies no one could predict, and of courage that seemed almost superhuman. Even as worlds surrendered, humanity did not gloat. They acted with honor, ensuring that unnecessary destruction was avoided and that life was spared where it could be. The humans were not conquerors, they were enforcers of a lesson, teachers of humility, and warriors who reminded the galaxy that underestimation came at the highest cost. Elder Vork sank to his knees, staring at Alara. We should have listened, he whispered, the weight of centuries of pride crushing him. We should have heeded your warning. Alara's gaze was steady, unwavering. And now you live with that choice. Let it be a lesson not only for you, but for all who think they can ignore humanity. We warned you. You chose to ignore it. This is the cost of your arrogance. The Council, once untouchable, had fallen. Humanity's justice was not driven by vengeance alone, but by the certainty that the galaxy would never again forget who had been underestimated, dismissed, and mocked. And in that certainty, humans would continue their hunt, not for cruelty but for respect and to ensure that no species would ever repeat the same mistakes. The galaxy had changed forever. The era of underestimating humans was over. With the fall of the Galaxy Council, the galaxy itself began to change. Worlds that had once been proud and arrogant were now quiet, observing humanity with a mix of fear and awe. Across countless star systems, leaders held emergency meetings and entire populations whispered stories of the humans who had rewritten the rules of power. Humanity had not only survived, they had become a force that no one could ignore. Commander Jace stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the stars pass by. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. Instead, he spoke quietly to his officers. We did not fight for revenge. We fought for respect. And now the galaxy will remember that humans are not to be underestimated. That is enough. The humans moved carefully across the galaxy, offering peace to those who surrendered. They did not seek to dominate, to enslave, or to destroy unnecessarily. They were teachers now, showing the galaxy that strength must be respected, courage must be valued, and warnings must never be ignored. Every action had a lesson behind it, every encounter a reminder of what happens when arrogance meets determination. On one small, distant world, children listened to stories of the humans. They are brave, one child whispered, gripping a toy ship. They fight for what they believe in. They protect even when no one asked them to. Across the stars, similar whispers echoed, fear mixed with admiration, caution mixed with wonder. Humanity was becoming legend, a symbol of unstoppable courage. Elder Vork, the last survivor of the Council, watched humanity's fleets move through the galaxy. His massive form was bent with age, but his mind worked faster than ever before. He had once ruled with pride, believing himself untouchable. Now he understood the truth. They are not just strong, he muttered. They are humans, and we ignored them at our own peril. Even the species that had been enemies of humanity before now learned to respect them. Fleets that had once prepared for war were now cautious, choosing diplomacy over conflict. The humans had not only won battles, they had changed hearts and minds across the stars. The galaxy was learning a new rule: underestimate humanity at your own risk. Alara spoke to a council of liberated worlds, her voice calm but full of authority. We do not seek to rule. We do not seek to conquer. We are here to remind the galaxy that respect is earned, not assumed. Those who stand against arrogance and heed warnings will survive. Those who ignore them will face the consequences. Her words carried weight, not because of threats, but because of truth. Every planet that had resisted, every fleet that had doubted humanity had seen the results. The humans had fought not for glory, not for power, but for survival, honor, and justice, and in doing so they had left a mark that would never fade. Across the galaxy, historians began to record the human campaigns. Scholars began to study their strategies, and young leaders began to teach their children about the humans who could not be ignored. Fear had given way to respect, and respect had cemented humanity's place as a species unlike any other. The humans had not just hunted, they had taught. They had not just won battles, they had changed the rules of the galaxy. Every civilization that had once laughed at them now knew the same truth. Humans were relentless, clever, courageous, and unstoppable. And the lesson was clear: never underestimate a human again. As Alara looked out into the endless stars, she knew their journey was far from over. The galaxy had learned its lesson, But humanity would remain vigilant. They had hunted, yes, but they had also protected, preserved, and prepared. And one day, if needed, they would hunt again. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity. And that respect was hard-earned, eternal, and unforgettable. Generations had passed since humanity had begun their hunt, but the galaxy still remembered. Stories of the humans who could not be underestimated traveled faster than any fleet, whispered from star system to star system. Children grew up learning of the species that had been laughed at, dismissed, and ignored, but had returned to rewrite the rules of the galaxy forever. Elder Vork, the last survivor of the Galaxy Council, now lived in quiet exile on a remote world. His once powerful frame was bent with age, his mind heavy with regret. He had underestimated humanity, ignored their warning, and laughed at their courage, and now he carried the weight of that mistake every day. "They are human," he whispered to the stars, his voice trembling, "and I will never forget them." Across countless worlds, humans were no longer just warriors. They had become symbols of courage, determination, and honor. Fleets were trained using their tactics, scholars studied their strategies, and young leaders aspired to match their discipline and focus. Humanity had shown the galaxy that even the smallest, most underestimated species could change the course of history through unity, intelligence, and unwavering resolve. Commander Jace stood aboard the Resolute, looking out into the endless black of space. "We did what we had to do," he said quietly. "We were ignored, we were underestimated, and the galaxy thought us weak. Now they remember." His words were calm, but behind them was the pride of a species that had overcome every doubt and every obstacle. Alara walked beside him, her gaze steady. "We fought not for revenge," she said. "We fought for survival, for respect, and for the truth that humanity cannot be ignored. They will never forget what we have done, and neither will we. This is how legends are born." In every corner of the galaxy, aliens told tales of the human hunt. Soldiers who had faced them spoke of bravery that was almost impossible to comprehend, of intelligence that outmatched even the most advanced machines, and of determination that refused to yield. Humans were more than warriors. They were living proof that courage, honor, and unity could overcome any obstacle. Some species still feared humans, and rightly so. But that fear had transformed into respect. No longer were humans laughed at, dismissed, or ignored. They were remembered. Their victories, their lessons, and their relentless pursuit of justice had left an indelible mark on the galaxy. On a quiet planet, a child held a small model of a human starship. "They fought for us," the child said, eyes wide with admiration. "Even when we didn't ask them to. Even when they could have destroyed us, they protected us. They are human." Across the stars, millions of children would grow up learning the same story, inspired by the courage and strength of a species that refused to be underestimated. Elder Vork, gazing at the same stars, understood the truth now more clearly than ever. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed, and mocked, and they had hunted forever, not out of cruelty, but out of justice, honor, and necessity. That lesson would live long after he was gone, and so, humanity became immortal in the memory of the galaxy. Their story, their courage, and their relentless spirit would echo through the stars forever. The galaxy had learned a truth it could never forget. Humans were unstoppable, fearless, and unforgettable. They had hunted once, they had conquered arrogance, and they would be remembered forever. The humans had been laughed at. They had been ignored. And yet they had hunted the galaxy, teaching it a lesson in courage and respect that would last for all time. And in every corner of the universe, from the smallest settlement to the greatest capital, one truth was whispered: never underestimate a human. Never ignore their warning. Humans hunt forever,